We begin tonight with an issue that was raised in the last Democratic presidential debate. Today, the New York City Police Commissioner reached his decision in the investigation of Officer Daniel Pantaleo, who was shown 5 years ago choking Eric Garner on Staten Island in a video that has been seen around the world. And that became an issue in this year's Democratic presidential debate.
Officer Pantaleo used a chokehold that was prohibited by NYPD. He did that for 7 seconds, 11 different times. Eric Garner said that he couldn't breathe. He knew what he was doing, that he was killing Eric Garner, and yet he has not been brought to justice. That police officer should be off the street.
He should be fired. He should be fired now.
The Civil Rights Division of the United States Department of Justice said charges should have been filed, but this United States Department of Justice usurped, and I believe it is because that president did not want those charges to go forward, and they overrode a decision by the Civil Rights Division of the United States Department of Justice.
In that video of Officer Pantaleo choking Eric Garner, if that video had not been recorded by a witness watching the arrest, then there would have been no real investigation of what Officer Pantaleo actually did. And it is that video that allowed Eric Garner himself to testify against Officer Pantaleo in the police department's investigation. Eric Garner now takes his place in the tragic history of police misuse of deadly force as the dead victim who was still able to testify against the police officer. Eric Garner's testimony was instantly memorable. We heard it on the video. I can't breathe. 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 11 times. I can't breathe. We will show you once again a portion of the video of Daniel Pantaleo choking Eric Garner to death. And I say that by way of warning because it has always been difficult to watch. We will show you about 20 seconds of that video. You will hear Eric Garner saying, I can't breathe 4 times.
Every time you see me, you want to mess with me. I'm tired of it. Don't touch me, please.
Came over.
Not touch me. I can't breathe.
In the police department investigation, the medical examiner testified that the chokehold killed Eric Garner. Chokeholds are against NYPD rules. But the departmental judge hearing the case found that the chokehold was acceptable for the first couple of seconds because Officer Pantaleo's grip slipped accidentally, according to the judge, into a chokehold. It's what happened after that that killed Eric Garner. Here's how the police commissioner described that today.
During the struggle, Officer Pantaleo had the opportunity to readjust his grip from a prohibited chokehold to a less lethal alternative, but did not make use of that opportunity. Instead, even once Mr. Garner was moved to his side on the ground, with his left arm behind his back and his right hand still open and extended, Officer Pantaleo kept his hands clasped and maintained the chokehold.
It was for that reason, and the judge's finding that Officer Pantaleo did not tell the truth to investigators, that the judge recommended that Daniel Pantaleo be fired. Her recommendation was addressed to Police Commissioner James O'Neill, who has the exclusive authority to make the final departmental decision in cases like this.
I stand before you today confident that I have reached the correct decision, and that has certainly not made it an easy decision. I served for nearly 34 years as a New York City cop before becoming police commissioner. I can tell you that had I been in Officer Pantaleo's situation, I may have made similar mistakes. And had I made those mistakes, I would have wished I had used the arrival of backup officers to give the situation more time to make that arrest. And I would have wished that I had released my grip before it became a chokehold. Every time I watch that video, I say to myself, as probably all of you do, to Mr. Garner, don't do it. Comply. Officer Pantaleo, don't do it. I said that about the decisions made by both Officer Pantaleo and Mr. Garner. But none of us can take back our decisions, most especially when they lead to the death of another human being.
And after that long preamble, after 13 minutes after the police commissioner began speaking today, he finally said this.
Therefore, I agree with the Deputy Commissioner of Trials' legal findings and recommendations. It is clear that Daniel Pantaleo can no longer effectively serve as a New York City police officer.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.